Hey everybody, Angela and Catherine here, back at you with another #Love Rules Challenge. And for today we want to talk to you guys about how it is okay to disagree. For some of us this might go a little bit against our nature, or some of us it might be all about your nature. So we just want to break that down for you in the next couple minutes.
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about the arena of conflict and how people respond to that arena of conflict. And then hopefully by the end of this, we're going to talk to you also about what happens when you have conflict with someone and how it actually can be a good thing. So let's go ahead and get started. So we have a visual today for you that we've drawn a little box, and it says the arena of conflict. We'll say, hey, are you going to get in the arena, or are you going to stand there and look at it? So people respond to conflict in a multitude of ways. The first way that people typically respond to conflict, maybe this is you, is they avoid it. We call this the avoider. This is someone who acknowledges that the conflict is there. They can see the arena. They know that a battle or a conflict is imminent. They know that it could potentially happen, and they do everything in their power to avoid it. So they are running to avoid conflict.
And the second is on the opposite end of the spectrum, and that is the fighter. This person is actually more concerned with having the conflict than taking care of the person or being aware of the person. They just want to get in there, have the conflict, and be done.
Yeah.
Even though they might have
They're actually not even interested in the resolution. They really are in it for the battle itself. Yeah, that a lot of people definitely fall under that category. The third responder, the third category, is the stone thrower. And this is more of a passive-aggressive approach to conflict. But this is someone who isn't necessarily in the arena, but they see the arena and they're throwing stones at the arena. What that looks like is maybe this is someone who is picking at you or saying rude statements or just generally annoyed with you because that conflict is there and they aren't willing to really address it, but they sort of address around the issue, trying to feel like they are addressing the actual issue. But that's what a stone thrower is.
And then lastly, this most common to us ladies is the gossip gatherer. So you get all your little hints together and talk about the person instead of talking to the person. And that's, we're going to talk more about that, but that's pretty dangerous, because what ends up happening is you raise up a little army of disgruntled hens, and you feel right. You feel right because all these people agreed with you, and you're no longer willing to listen or be open.
Yeah, and you're actually not addressing the conflict, you're just talking about it with other people. So maybe you're an avoider, maybe you're a fighter, maybe you're a stone thrower, maybe you're a gossip gatherer, but we want to talk to you now about how to get in the arena and actually have that conflict that brings about resolution. So let's talk about that now. Okay, so now we're going to talk about preparing for the battle of conflict. It's not something that any of us get really excited about, but it's necessary if you're going to be in a relationship with anyone. I can tell you, first and foremost, you're hearing it here, we have a lot of conflict.
That's right.
We have a deep friendship, but then we also work together day in and day out. And that is always going to lead to moments that we have conflict. And we've had to learn how to handle conflict. And so we want to share with you some of the things that we've learned with each other.
First thing is you want to know the outcome. Go ahead and walk into that conversation knowing what you want the end result to be. That is saved so much emotional energy for me. A lot of tears have been saved because I knew where I wanted the conversation to go versus being at the mercy of someone else's emotions or bad day, etc.
And knowing the outcome, 2 quick practical tips on that is, number 1, you want to make sure that the victory is we. The victory is not me. The victory is not you. The battle is for the relationship, is for the outcome. And so that victory needs to be tied to, connected to the idea of how do we win in this situation.
Yeah, and the second would be a practical little step here. You don't fight to be right, but fight to be understood.
Ouch.
That's super hard for some of us. And I would say not just to be understood, but also fight to be understanding of the other person.
Yeah, that's good. I was a debater all through high school, and so I fall under that fighter category, and I definitely fall under the fighting for the right to be right. And that is wrong, because I can tell you that's always been the place where conflict has actually increased rather than decreased, is when I've maintained that I've got to be right. Second category is weapons down, walls down.
Yes. So some of you guys might have our weapons down, walls down shirt from a couple of years ago, but we wanted to kind of elaborate on the heart behind weapons down, walls down for a little bit. So there's 3 quick practicals for that. The first is whenever you're going into a conflict or conversation, really important kind of guideline to have is to ask questions. Oftentimes when I'm talking to people and I'm maybe a little apprehensive about the conversation, instead of coming at somebody and saying, hey, you did this, and when you did this, this made me feel this, I ask a question. I'm like, hey, this happened. Can you bring me into what was going on there? Were you having a bad day?
Tell me more about...
tell me more about blank. And that really disarms the other person and it creates a more friendly environment.
Yeah, that falls definitely under weapons down. I'm putting my weapons down and I'm disarming you by giving you permission to go first and share your side of the story. That's awesome. The second thing is no absolutes. You may not use ever, you never can... ever use absolutes, and I just used a million. So
always.
Absolute words.
Every time.
Yes, these things. Always. Every time. You never. You always. You have to. Those words pigeonhole somebody into a situation that actually isn't even true. Because if, for example, if you say, you never listen to me. Well, that actually is not true. The person is listening to you right now say, you never listen to me. So try to avoid those absolute words and say things. You could say, hey, sometimes I don't feel heard by you. Or in this specific situation, I didn't feel that you listened to me very well. That's a better way, a disarming way, than saying, you never. And so the third practical of weapons down, walls down is to take punches. We're talking about disarming ourselves and putting down our weapons. And so what that means is that on some level, you're going to have to be willing to get your toes stepped on, to get your feelings hurt, to get a punch in the belly. Because that is what conflict is coming eye to eye, eye to eye, knee to knee, and knowing that that person is going to share a hard truth that may be directed directly towards you. And that's okay. That's what conflict is. It's willingness to accept where you've been wrong.
And a great thing, when you take a punch, a great follow-up is to ask a question.
Yeah.
So oftentimes I've had a conversation with somebody and they've said something that's thrown me off and it hurt. And instead of letting that hurt settle in my heart, I've said, hey, can you explain to me why you just said that? Because that didn't feel right with me. And a lot of times I was completely wrong in the assumption that I made about their statement.
That's good. Moving on to our final way to prepare for the arena of conflict, and that is to understand this very important truth. And that truth is...
intimacy creates conflict, and guess what? Conflict creates intimacy.
Yay! What does that mean?
It means when you get close to somebody, you rub up against somebody, you realize, gosh, this is sandpaper, this is ironing, sharpening iron, this hurts.
This is annoying.
This
person
annoying.
Is not as awesome as I thought.
Yes, you have an opportunity for conflict, and then after that conflict, you obviously have the opportunity for greater intimacy with that person.
Yeah, the way that I always think about it is the closer you get to someone, the more that you're aware of their faults and their inadequacies and their humanness. And that's going to create conflict. And so rather than using that as a reason to run from the friendship, use that as a reason to plug in or press into the friendship. Because after those moments, after those heated words, those arguments, that conflict, you actually feel closer to that person, and it creates a new level of intimacy.
And the last thing I'll say about intimacy creating conflict and conflict creating intimacy is one of the great fruits of that is understanding. It's been really helpful for us as a team, as ACE, to when we have conflict with one another, you have a greater understanding of where that person is at. And so the next time the thing comes around, because it will come back around again, you have an opportunity to empathize and sympathize with that person versus jump to a judgment.
Yeah, before the conflict even happens. Yeah. Which is awesome.
And it could actually, guess what? Prevent a conflict!
I don't know if any of this is resonating with you guys, but we do believe that a great way to love others is to know that it's, number one, okay to disagree, and number two, know how to prepare yourself for the battle, for the arena of conflict. So pick up your weapons, drop them down, and go have an eyeball to eyeball, knee to knee conversation with someone today.
Awesome.